Welcome back to another Epidose of these guys who just eat meat and can't stop talking about it. Today we're doing another short video on the foods to be avoided. So yeah, this is a common question when people are getting started because not everybody goes straight to the meat and only meat right away, and they're kind of adjusting their diet and kind of cutting things out. And so it's always an important question: what are the best foods to avoid, or what are the most important foods to avoid? So Justin, what's at the top of your list?
Seed oils, definitely seed oils. I think everyone in the keto carnivore space, low carb space, all agrees that seed oils are just they're really bad. So we're talking about your polyunsaturated fats and the way they make these seed oils. So what do I mean when I say seed oil? So this is your olive oil, which is very, very popular. Everyone believes that olive oil is healthy for you. Um, that's your corn canola oil or corn oil, right? Your cottonseed oil, also known as Crisco, um, and also your spray-on oils, your soy oil, so you have that as well.
This is all a
Um,
group of stuff that we used to call vegetable oil.
Vegetable oils, correct.
Yeah, and people like to call them seed oils because it's a little more accurate.
Again, when it comes to corn, save it to the birds.
Yeah, let the crows eat the corn, and then the cows can eat the cobs.
Right, right. There
That's
you
how it's
go.
meant to be.
So not only, so I know me and Tom have talked about vegetables, how they're very highly removed from their natural state. Most vegetables only are been around for the last 2,000 years, if that. Some less, some a little longer than that, but no more than about 5,000 years. Um, and of it being an edible vegetable. But seed oils takes it to a whole nother level because they're so highly processed, they're heated up to a ridiculous degree. And they're put in these containers, and people use them all the time to lubricate their food, or can't believe it's not butter. And why are people all stuck on this? Well, it goes back to Ansel Keys, fat phobia, and very bad data, twisted science, which is not science at all, and it being heart healthy. If you look at the I can't believe it's not butter, it has the approval of the Heart Association on it, because they believe wrongly. I don't know if it's belief or at this point just greedy, but that animal fats are bad for the body and that processed vegetable fats are so much better.
Right. Yeah, canola oil's been really popular, and it was basically an industry created in Canada. That's why it's called canola oil. And it's Canada has a little bit more limited growing season than a lot of places because they're so far north. And so they developed this plant called the rape, and the oil is squeezed out of the rape seeds, and it's very noxious. So then they have to deodorize it and alter the flavor and all that just to make it palatable. And it's basically just a cheap source of plant fats or plant oil. And the problem with all of these is whether it's a peanut or corn or rapeseed or even an olive, once you squeeze the oil out, it starts to oxidize too. So on one hand, we're not really evolved to digest these fats very well, and that's why they cause a lot of indigestion. But they're oxidized, so they start changing chemically once they're released from their encapsulation. And so almost everything you buy, and I don't know, even when you go out and you spend money on expensive olive oil, it's not really any better for you than any other one. And most of those are
What, the pure Italian virgin olive oil that you pay $40 for a quart or whatever it is? Isn't that much better for you? You don't say.
yeah, apparently not. You're better off just eating the animal fat. I mean, we spent the last 40, 50 years trying to prove that these fats are better than animal fats, and they're just not. I mean, even coconut oil, which a lot of people eat, particularly in like keto type diets, I noticed when I stopped eating the coconut oil, even my digestion got better. But we were talking earlier about donuts, right? The ultimate carb hole.
Right.
I noticed if I ate a donut of any kind, it gave me heartburn. And that's basically indigestion, and that's because you've taken a wheat-based product with refined sugars and you fried it in a vegetable oil. So like you have kind of the worst of all worlds. You've got the dopaminergic effect of the wheat gluten, which kind of binds to the opiate receptors in the brain and gives you kind of a euphoric feeling. You've got the sugar. You've got the feedback from your intestinal biome that digests carbohydrates, telling the brain to eat more. And then you've got the high from the sugar, and then you've got the saturated vegetable oils, the oxidized vegetable oils in there. So that's really a good thing to avoid. Is something like a donut is probably some of the worst, right?
They are do nots.
Do not,
They
do
are do
not
nots.
donut,
Right.
right? So, and then there's a lot of crossover foods I think are worth avoiding too, because there's a lot of stuff that the foods that are real tantalizing. They're supposed to be healthier for you, but they're really not. And I know a lot of people like they have trouble giving up the cereals, the granolas, stuff like that. They're usually all sweetened.
You mean
Yeah.
Nature's Valley isn't healthy for you? In all the commercials, they always have people hiking. They look so good. They're out in the wilderness, and eat a nature's granola bar.
Yeah, a lot of those grains are bad. Even like oats, we're always making jokes about Wilford Brimley selling us oats, and then pretty soon he's selling us diabetes supplies. So yeah, no, and like oats are bad for your teeth. They that I like to say oats will even give horses diabetes. So that stuff's not so good. It's hard on your teeth. The grains are hard on your teeth. It tends to cause plaque. You get more candida and streptococcus and staphylococcus from eating those things. And then on top of that, all that stuff comes from row cropping. So you got all these fields full of corn, wheat, barley, oats, and so on and so forth. And that all really just destroys the topsoil. And of course, you have to murder millions of animals and insects in order to do it, right? So it's not only not good for our bodies, it's not good for the planet.
Definitely not. One that's at the top of my list is seeds and nuts. Oftentimes, these are the most toxic because it is plant babies, and plants don't like their babies eaten. So you oftentimes have the highest amounts of oxalates, phytic acids, sometimes even stuff like arsenic. Seeds have very high levels of different chemicals in them because they're really meant to make either it indigestible so that you poop it out and then that would grow the new animal that's generally found in fruits, or it's supposed to make an animal so sick that um, they won't want to eat it or mess with that plant or eat the seeds. um, and so that is and so special thing like lectins, right? Lectins crawl up the vagus nerve of the brain and can be led to Parkinson's, dementia, etc. So that's a real serious issue. Um, Interesting thing about humans, though, is that you can eat them for years and you may not feel that until you're way later in life. But eat the seeds now. And I get it. I used to love almonds. Those were my go-to. I loved almonds. I kind of knew that peanuts weren't the best, but almond butter, all that stuff. But it's really, really not good for you. There's a lot of different chemicals in them. So that's kind of a big one for me is nuts and seeds.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because there's so much advertising that makes it seem like they're so good for us to say, oh, they have vitamins in them, or they have,
Potassium in almonds.
protein or whatever. And then they don't tell you about all the stuff that's in them that's bad for you. And people get this idea that, they've just always been there and we've always been eating them. We were hunter gatherers and we're out gathering nuts and berries and tubers all the time. But people don't realize that, like potatoes, one of the most common types of tubers or even a cassava. They're toxic. All wild forms of potatoes are toxic, and in order to eat them, you have to detoxify them. So we didn't really have stuff like that as a food source. The roots and tubers that people gathered are, for the most part, rare and far in between. They made up a tiny fraction of diet, and most of that came after the extinction of the megafauna, when we were more desperate for things to eat. So yeah, the plants are full of pesticides to get us to stop eating them. That's their defense mechanism, and they never talk about that. They're trying to sell you spinach or oranges or whatever the hell it is, and they don't tell you about the downside of eating. They just push them as though they're healthy and you're going to live forever. That's the thing. It's I get it. People like to run marathons, but you're not going to live longer because you run a marathon. You're not going to live longer because you're vegan. I mean, not even doctors live longer. So, they kind of don't come out and say you will, but they imply it all the time. So people believe you eat these foods and they're going to somehow make you live longer. And there's no evidence for that.
Right. And speaking of plants, nightshades would be another big one for me. So your tomatoes, potatoes are actually a nightshade. It's a special little chemical in these that some people are more allergic to than others, obviously. But if you have migraines or some other neurological condition, um, definitely the nightshades are to be avoided. They oftentimes also have histamines in them, especially tomatoes are high histamine and they're a nightshade. And so a lot of people really have issues with tomato. Um, I avoid tomatoes pretty much. I don't eat them at all anymore. I have, and then I didn't, and then I did, and now I don't. So there you go. Um, so yeah, I'd say nightshades are definitely on there. Your green veggies, the kale, you're just shredding. I wish we need to pull up that picture of the celery cleaning that guy's colon. Um,
I could maybe do that. Keep talking. I think I
yeah.
know where it is.
So yeah, so with your kale, you have the oxalates, you have, phytic acid, um, you have again the fibrous. It looks pretty angry, like it looks like an angry vegetable. It's kind of spiny, like it doesn't look like something that you should be eating. um, it doesn't taste very good. It's very, very bitter. um, and if you eat that, you're just shredding your insides basically. Yeah, you could juice it, but then you're just getting a tons of oxalate crystals straight into you. So that's with the chard, the spinach. Yeah, and you're not absorbing that iron. I'm sorry, you're not absorbing the K2 from the kale because you can't absorb it. uh, all the different nutrients that they make up for. It's like, yeah, that might be found in it, but again, they're not accounting the anti-nutrients, the nutrients that it's extracting from your body for it to digest, as well as the damage to the gut lining that fibrous cellulose does to your gut. So there's so many different reasons um, to not eat the green vegetables. I would say avoid those definitely. And the picture that Tom's looking for, it's it's a it's a guy with his butt, his pants down, and there's a celery stick, basically taking a toothbrush to his booty, and it says, brush, clean your colon or brush your colon or something like that. It's from like the 1940s or something like that. And it sold it as a positive thing, clean out your colon, basically, flush yourself out. And I think uh when you eat all that bulk, you end up filling the toilet bowl with bulk. And so oftentimes I think people think that's a good thing, like, oh, you're flushing out a bunch of toxins, you're really, getting rid of anything that's bad in the body. You're detoxifying yourself with a, ridiculous bowel movement, one for the ages. But a better bowel movement is one where your body doesn't have to detoxify so much, and where you don't have to go every single morning, and it isn't all this bulk and craziness, and you're not gassy, and your colon's not inflamed from all the fibers. So yeah, similarly to all the reasons why you wouldn't literally stick a toothbrush up your baby unless up your booty, unless that's your kink, or up your baby. That's very important as well, of course. You should probably also not eat celery because it's almost the same thing, or any of these fibrous vegetables.
Yeah, to circle back on what Justin was saying, that a lot of the nightshades, they actually are New World food. So Europeans, Asians, and Africans didn't even have exposure to those foods till after the 1500s as they slowly worked their way in, you know. And then the other thing is like the grains, the cereal crops. We didn't even attempt to grow those till about 10,000 years ago. So the only source for that stuff was just to find wild grasses and harvest the seeds. And if you ever been through a grassy knoll and seeing it go to seed, you realize like it would take you all day to make a bowl of cereal. So that stuff just wasn't available till more recently. It took a long time to develop crops like wheat and barley so that they could be, regularly grown. And again, the problem is that that type of farming is just bad for the soil. So we didn't really have time to evolve to eat that kind of stuff. And yet we were led to believe that this is the healthy stuff. We see commercial after commercial and article after article. I like to say, it's like most of those articles are just somebody's opinion about the science, and usually it's an opinion that's skewed in a way to help sell a product, and not really in a way that is as healthy as they lead you to believe. So
And they use epidema dooba 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 da da doo doo dee. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, particularly when it comes to nutrition, yeah, epidemiology is a very soft science. It barely gives us an idea of what we might want to look into. It doesn't really prove anything. Like I see all these posts on Instagram from Dr. Joel Kahn, and every study he posts says, "Oh, this new study may suggest." Yeah, and that's what the guys like that, they build everything on that these little ideas that may be suggested. Instead, you could turn around and look at the archaeological record, and we clearly were just following animals around and eating them. So we have rock solid evidence. We have the physics behind it is the nitrogen isotopes and stuff like that, where they can extract collagen from fossils for like 40,000 years back. And they know exactly what we ate and what ratios. So that's a long ways from this epidemiology that a lot of these people sort of pose their theory of plant-based nutrition being superior, which doesn't have a leg to stand on. I didn't find that graphic, but I will look for it because I saw it recently. So the celery graphic's pretty hilarious. But it's been pointed out that our colon, our large intestine, its modern job is just to re-extract water and sodium from the food we've digested. It doesn't really perform too many other functions. I know a lot of people, particularly the resistant starch people, they talk about, oh no, you ferment the twice baked potato in your colon, and then you extract fatty acids from it, which there's so little nutrition that can be absorbed that way. It's insignificant. So when people go on those diets and lose weight, it seems because they're basically putting food in they're getting very little nutrition out of, and they're basically just kind of fasting. You got to look at it more like a potato fast, where you're getting a little bit of starch. Because in a modern anatomy, most of our nutrition is absorbed in the small intestine, and it's ideal for meat. And a lot of people, like one of the treatments now for Crohn's disease is just to wipe out the a lot of the microbiome with antibiotics, and then put people on a carnivore diet so that the right microbes start to flourish in there. And that's one of the ways that they get rid of Crohn's disease. So I think a lot of people hear about stuff like SIBO and stuff like that, which is basically the wrong microbiome living in the wrong part of the intestines. And that all happens because people are eating the wrong food, because they're told to eat all this plant-based food, all these carb-rich foods, and all this fiber, and they wind up just irritating their digestive tract and causing microbiome to flourish in the wrong parts. And so that's why a lot of people come to carnivore as an elimination diet when they have autoimmune diseases or bowel diseases, and they find out that, wow, not only do I start feeling better, my conditions start going away, that they find the evidence that this is how we've just been eating since the beginning of time. Right. So we're just kind of circling back to what we've forgotten.
Right, definitely. To wrap it up, though, the last one I would say would be your high glycemic index fruits.
Mm.
Would definitely be so your watermelons, your cantaloupes, your bananas, especially your bananas. Bananas are just yellow sugar, basically. No, you're not getting that potassium from the banana, sadly. No, on a run, you should not have a banana before, during, or after.
Sorry,
Uh,
Freely.
uh, yeah. So those are just the really, really sweet fruits. Your grapes, your oranges. Yeah, you're not getting that vitamin C. Sorry. It's competing with the transport of the glucose, and oranges are very high in sugar, and your body's going to choose to process the sugar over processing the vitamin C, because the vitamin C can go, and the sugar it has to process, because otherwise you'll die if your sugar gets too high, and it can't let that sugar float around your body for much too long.
Yep. Yeah, we evolved around away from making our own vitamin C in our bodies, and that works great if you're on a meat-based diet and not eating a bunch of carbohydrates. So that's one of the things that people don't realize. They think you got to have citrus or whatever, spinach, in order not to get scurvy, and it's just not the case. How long has it been since you've had any vitamin C, like from an orange or something, Justin?
I guess over 2 years, about 2 years, something like that. I mean, I think I've had like the occasional lemon slice in a glass of water, but that's basically it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But caveat there, you do need vitamin C to supplement if you're eating carbohydrates.
Yeah. Yeah, you can, like he said, if you're eating a bunch of carbs, they compete with the transport of vitamin C, and that can cause vitamin C deficiency in certain parts of the body. So, but if you're not eating carbs, you're carb free or low carb, zero carb, carnivore. We all test normal for vitamin C levels, and we don't eat any foods that supposedly contain vitamin C because we don't need it. And I think that's one of the things people don't realize, that our primary antioxidant system in our body is uric acid, which kind of replaced the citric acid sort of need. So our need for vitamin C is very low. And if you don't eat a carb rich diet, you're going to be normal like us. Just eat meat. Works out great. So, anyways, well, I think we covered it. I did want to remark that, yeah, kale, is supposed to be this great health food. It can, but in the end, that was a failed crop. That was supposed to be animal fodder, and it's didn't work out. So then they decided to feed it to people and decided, oh, this is super healthy for you. But
Not just feed it to people, feed it to yuppies at $2 a pound.
right. So yeah, I don't know. Save the kale for the iguana. All right, they like it. Everybody else hates it. So
So just to recap, seed oils, nuts and seeds,
yeah.
your green veggies, and then high glucose, high sugar fruits. Those would be the top. And
All right.
I think we did so well in this that we deserve a round of applause.
All right. All right. So please subscribe, pass links around for these videos. Thanks for watching another one of our short ribs. Eat some meat, feel better. Whatever you do, don't fall down the donut hole.
Oh.